of... Okay, I'm gonna just start talking. I thought I didn't have anything prepared. Just go. Okay, whatever. So, last time I talked about not paying attention to just the outward appearance of a person. I talked about how we want to make sure that we keep someone's outward appearance and our attractiveness, our attraction to them in check by the character of the person and about what type of spirit they carry themselves in and things of that nature. This time I want to kind of extend on what I mean by the character of the person. I want to touch on 3 different things, which is submission to authority, commitment, and suffering. This all contributes to the character of a person, and these are a few things to pay attention to or look out for when dealing with a person. The first one, I have my notebook here, you can see it. Anyway, the first one is submission to authority. A lot of times when we say authority, people automatically cringe inside, but authority is not a terrible thing. The abuse of authority is a terrible thing, and we talked about this in a few in a few videos earlier when I was saying how things that were created by God can be distorted into something different, and the abuse of these things can make them seem horrible. So authority isn't bad, but you want to pay attention to how somebody submits to authority. If the person that you're interested in doesn't submit to any type of authority, you might want to pump the brakes on that and see what's going on. Everybody has to submit to some type of authority. Everybody. Somebody got to be held accountable in some type of way. Somebody has to teach somebody. Somebody has to grow and learn and teach somebody else. There's always authority in your life. Like I said, if the person that you're interested in has no connection with authority, question it, sis. Okay, to the next part. If a man does not submit to any type of authority, there is no way that he can practice humble authority in his own house. There was a quote that I read. I'm not quoting it correctly, but go with me. It's basically saying that you can't lead unless you follow. And I think that's very important in this authority aspect, because you can't lead a household unless you learn what it looks like to be in an authoritative position. And you can only do that really if you're under some type of authority. With a female, she won't be able to practice humility and submission and honor in her house if she's not practicing it somewhere else. It's not a role that you automatically jump into. Sometimes it takes a little abrasiveness to kind of get into, this is what's good for me, this is what I need, this is what I need to grow, this is what I need to learn. So sis, it's not a horrible thing to be submissive to your husband or the authority figure that God has placed over your life. So those are the things about submission to authority. Pay attention to how they deal with authoritative figures. If they're just combative with no logical reason, no legit reason, pay attention to that. That might not be okay. The next one is commitment. You want to make sure that someone is inclined to commitment before you get into a relationship with them, because a relationship is a commitment. If they're very wishy-washy, they can't really commit to anything, I'm not saying that they just not ever going to get there, but this might not be the time, sis. This might not be the time, bruh. This might not be the person. It might, but pay attention to that. You want to see, do they have a church home? A lot of people out here, they floaters, float on, but you want to see if they have commitment to the body, commitment to the ministry that God has placed them in. You also want to see commitments to their family, commitments to their friends. I understand that out here, some people's families are a little bit cray-cray, right? I understand that. But you also want to pay attention to how they deal with these cray-cray family members. You want to pay attention to how they deal with conflict with their friends. I'm kind of touching on the next topic, but it's it's easy to want to run from something than to confront the issue and deal with the issue. I'm not saying that you should always stay in a situation to prove commitment, but there is a difference between running from something and walking away from something. And you want to pay attention and see how this person deals with commitment. Is the commitment more important than running away for them? You also want to make sure that this person isn't looking for the next best shiny thing. There's nothing wrong with growing. There's nothing wrong with evolving. There's nothing wrong with go get your blessing. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying there is anything wrong with that. But there are a lot of people out here who aren't content where God has placed them. And they want to just go and get the next best thing and the next best thing. And so you may seem real shiny right now, but then sis or bruh come out here later and they're like, you just look a little better. You just seem a little better. I laugh more at you. Laughing more at people doesn't mean that that person is for you. Because the other person looks better doesn't mean that they're for you. But you want to pay attention to those types of people who are okay with jumping from person to the next person to the next person, or even from this job to the next job to the next job, especially if God has placed them in a position to grow and to learn and to get knowledge for things that will be valuable to them moving forward. So pay attention to that. The next thing is suffering. Anytime you say suffering, people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to suffer. But you know what? Love is long suffering. It's Bible. Check it out. Anyway, so you want to pay attention to how they suffer. And when I say this, it's say for instance, if they sin, do they turn away from it? Do they go to God? Do they run from God? Are they nonchalant about sin? Do they have a heart for God and a heart that's sensitive to what God loves and what God hates? You can definitely tell this by, like I said, if they're nonchalant about sin, say they sin, and then they're like, God forgive me. These are the people who test grace. Don't get into a relationship with somebody who likes testing grace. But yeah, pay attention to that, because that definitely shows the character of a person. It shows their spirit. It shows where their belief is in that moment. And I'm not saying that these people can't grow, but as of right now, hold off on that, friend. Okay. You also want to see how they deal with stress and sadness and anger, because you want to deal with that and see that and recognize that before you jump into a relationship, because you're going to be out here spazzing out if this person over here flipping tables. Surprise, right? So you want to pay attention to how they deal with their emotions and how they deal with certain things like that. Like I said, people can grow in these areas, but it's very important to pay attention. And I'm not saying that certain things should, with the way that they deal with things, should halt you from being in a relationship with them, but be very careful to pay attention to these things and don't overlook them because you like their outward appearance. Suffering definitely brings out things and reveals things that were hidden that we didn't know about. So if you think that you could on the suffering and everything, and you ain't got to pay attention to how they deal with certain things, just know that in a relationship, there will be some type of suffering. There will be some type of conflict. There will be some type of emotional strain in some type of way. You want to know how this person will deal with it. You want to know how you would deal with it. And just like you're looking for all this stuff in all these other people, look for it in yourself. Okay? So don't only analyze the other person with these three things. Look internally and ask God to expose and fix whatever it is that is wrong or not, well, wrong within yourself. Okay? So I'm almost out of time. That was this video. So I will definitely talk more in the next one. See ya.